Hey guys, National Master James Canty III here, and today we are going over center fun in the C3 Sicilian. So what that means is like having fun in the center with the C3 Sicilian, especially when they play certain things. Before we get started, hit the subscribe button, smash it, share the video, put some likes on the video, comments, all that other good stuff. I really appreciate it. Now let's get right into it. So here we go. Starting moves: E4, C5, C3, regular stuff we already know. Now, of course, center fun. There's a lot of fun that happens in the center in the C3 Sicilian. This is the key move with C3. When you play C3, you're just going to play D4, and you're already going to have a strong center. So if black doesn't know what he's doing, you are going to be in a lot of trouble with the black pieces. So usually, a lot of times I'll have the most fun in the center after knight C6 or E6. Sometimes D6, but let's look at a few lines here. After E6, this can easily go into a French type setup. So after E6, we do our regular D4 here, which is basically a French type setup. In my C3 Sicilian course that I have coming for you guys soon, we talk about here when they can go D5, which this resembles. It actually is a French structure. So when you go E5 here, it's a French advance, which is recommended. I am more on the capture side, which I'll cover both lines, but this here is more the French advance. So if you know how to play the French advance for white, I'm not a big fan of it because black always knows what to do, and they have comfortable positions. I even played the French myself growing up through the ranks. So you can play the French here. And one thing to note is that it is sometimes it's a psychological advantage to be able to play E5 here. And when you do play E5, the person, your opponent, opted to play a Sicilian, which is E4 C5. So they played C5, which psychologically puts them into a French mindset when you play E5 here and go into an advanced French. If they don't play the French, they may not know. Not that the French is extremely hard to play as black, but honestly, I'm just not the biggest fan anymore of the advanced French here for white. In this position, I actually capture, and capturing does open up the bishop here. But there's a lot of lines we go through. Knight F3, Bishop B5. I like Knight F3, followed by Bishop B5. We're going to bully this isolated pawn is the idea of capturing on D5. So that is E5 here. I usually never do that against D5. But you also have some weird moves here. And I say weird because sometimes they won't push D5 at all. And if they don't, they'll go Knight to C6 or Knight to F6 usually, or even captures, and then followed by Knight C6 or Knight to D6. Let's look at a few options. Knight C6 is usually my favorite that I face. I face it against strong players. I face it against players under 2,000. So with that being said, this is a pretty not common move, but it will happen. It will happen, and I'm not surprised at seeing it kind of thing. So after Knight C6 happens, what do you think you would play here as white? This is fun in the center, so think fun in the center stuff. I'll give you a few seconds to figure it out. The move for white is actually D5 on the board, advancing and hitting the knight. And it's going to be extremely uncomfortable for black if he doesn't play this correctly. I'll show you what happens. Sometimes they'll capture it. Most times they do. Why? Because this is extremely cramped. I tell my students all the time, when you cross the line, you got to go. And what is the line? These 1 to 4 and 5 to 8. 1 to 4 and 5 to 8. This is the lines. And anything that crosses the line that is not of the same color of your pieces needs to be eliminated. And D5 is very, very spatial grabbing kind of maneuver here. That happens. It's a move that grabs a lot of space. We get some center control. We stop D5 for him. We're hitting his knight. It's uncomfortable. Where do we actually go? So knight E5, now that that's there, I'll show you exactly what happens on knight E5. What do you actually do here? What do you think you would do here in this position? Fun in the center is today's topic. Think about that. White to move. When you come back to the screen, when you finish, the move is actually F4. We've seen this before in a previous C3 Sicilian video of the knight being trapped super early in this kind of position, preferably when the pawn's on G6. But after F4, this knight is attacked. You can't go here, you can't go here, you can't go anywhere but the G6 square. So after knight to G6, what do you think you play here? Fun in the center. You want to have fun in the center. I have had many games like this with the white pieces, believe it or not. It's extremely fun to get a position like this. If you said D6, you are 100% correct. Look at this pawn on D6, eliminating or stopping and restricting and constraining all of black's pieces here on this side of the board. It's gross looking. The knight can't move here. And let's say knight F6 does happen, which, I can play E5. I've also played knight A3. I like E5. And if knight here, then I just kind of bully this knight around. Knight a3, and I'm playing knight b5 and knight here. And these pawns just get ridiculous. h4, h5. Like, there's no way for black to do much of anything. And if I get a knight here on c7, it's going to be game over. So sometimes they won't even play knight f6. They may play something else, maybe f6, or queen b6 is a common one because you're attacking this pawn. I'll just play e5 to defend it. My next go is knight a3, knight b5, knight c7. And I'm also playing knight f3. I'm just having a very comfortable game here. And you don't even need theory at that point. It's just a better position. And for black, they're going to make many mistakes because there's a pawn on d6 and you can't dislodge it immediately. It's extremely difficult. Now, if they don't go knight to e5, they may capture it. And after captures, there's two ways you can go, actually three. Knight b8, honestly, is the best move. Knight to b8. Gross, right? Knight to b8, I'll still play d6. Whoa, there's a pawn on d6. The only move here, the best move here, actually, is queen to b6, I think. Let me make sure. I think it's queen b6. They're both the same. Queen b6 and queen f6 is what they like. It's +1 and 3 and 2 if you just saw the engine lines there. But these are the usual. You'll get one of these. But what is the intention of d6? Let's make a random move here. Not even a random, but just a development move like knight f6. How about knight f6? What happens here, guys? White to move. Game is over. Start a new one. That's not a move. All because of fun in the center in the C3 Sicilian. White to move. Here's the move. If you say queen e2, you are correct. You just want a full piece. Queen to e2, because the pawn's on d6, and you have to block with a bishop, which is absolutely gross. How about knight to c6? Well, same move. Queen e2 check, and give me something. Something's got to go today. That's exactly what that's about. And I think that might be it on that part. But pawn takes knight e7, or knight b8. You do have d6. The next thing is, this is my favorite to face, because what do you think you do? It's the same thing. Knight e7, d6. Once the knight moves, I play check, and I'm taking a piece, no matter what. How about knight to e5? Well, after knight e5, I actually play, what do you think? Hold on. Slow down here, guys. Slow down. What do you think you play here now? This is probably the one you have to be very accurate with this move order. What do you think? Now, I'm sure you probably thought about queen e2. I'm sure you probably thought about this. And you're like, oh, yeah, I can play queen e2 because if, you know, d6, I can play f4. Which is the thing. You could do this. But he actually has a better move. Queen to e7. Defending this. So now f4 doesn't work. You actually get not in trouble, but knight to d3. Actually, that is in trouble. Feels like you're in trouble for real. Yeah, that might be like an exchange or almost. Ouch. Yeah, you're actually losing. Knight f2 is coming. And this is hanging, like almost hanging, but especially after queen takes, you're forced to take with the queen unless you want to lose material, which I guess you're okay, because technically the knight can't get out, but this is not what we wanted. This is not what we wanted at all. So you don't play queen e2 here. The move is actually d6 again. d6 wins here. If the knight moves, then again we have the check once again, fun in the center stuff. And then the second thing is if they try something like queen b6 or queen f6 is actually the best move. Why? Because after queen e2, I can go queen e6. This is very sharp play. Now, you will lose this pawn as white if they play this correctly. But, I mean, I've actually just played, and I'll actually see what the engine does here. Engine does what? Bishop e3, right? Yeah, bishop e3 and knight f3. But usually what I will do is bishop e3, followed by knight to d2, especially after captures. Knight to d2, casting queen side. And his queen is irregularly placed. It's misplaced here on e6. It looks bad. It's weird to have his queen here on e6, so it's not as easy for your opponent to maneuver. This bishop's still bad. I'm going to have an open file for this real quickly, so I have some compensation for the sacrificed pawn. If they go queen f6, now if they go queen to b6, which is the most common move, you follow up with queen to e2, hitting the knight, and f4 is going to work now after bishop takes d6. f4 is on the board, bam, and now that knight is hanging, and we win a piece here. This is fun in the center in the C3 Sicilian. Now, after moves like, let's go back here, actually, e4, c3, knight c6. Knight c6 is another one. We actually covered this briefly. We covered this already. But d4 in a different video. d4, pawn takes, pawn takes. You have e6 and d6. e6 is virtually the same thing. d5, and then we're having fun in the center. Takes, and all the same moves can happen in this position. It's just the c pawn's gone, So slightly different, but not too much. And the other one here is actually d4 takes d6. So d6 happens too. What do you think you do here? This is an aggression opening. C3 Sicilian is actually labeled as a positional opening, but it's the way that we play it here at the GM Factory, where these Jedi train. We play it as a tactical opening. And with this being said, we're going to attack them as much as we can. So after d6, we're going to play d5 anyway. And this is one of my favorites too, because objectively speaking, this is not a bad position for black. It just, you know, they feel like they're doing fine. They have the knight out, the pawn's out, like they can do stuff. But the problem is that white's center is not only mobile very quickly, but also I have space, and which is my advantage. d5, knight b8 is just a gross move to make, but you kind of have to do it. I mean, maybe not. Maybe you could go knight e5, but I'm not a fan of being attacked so many times. f4, and then the knight's getting hit again. Knight to g6. Now this is one of my favorites here. Watch this, how these pawns start to roll. After knight to g6, I used to play like bishop c4 or bishop e3, but I just realized that what if I could get two pawns on d5 and e5? My pawns started on e4 and d4. What if I can get them on black squares on e5 and d5? This is black's territory. So it would be great to have pawns here. So what do you think you do? Knight to f3. What if you go e5 right now? It doesn't happen. Start a new one. Why did you even do this? What's wrong with you? You have lost a pawn. You have lost your advantage. The game is virtually over at this point. Now, with that being said, I'll play knight f3 to defend this pawn. So if something like, let's just make a move here, a6, not really that good, but it is stopping bishop e5, I guess. You may see it, but you could play e5 here. And after e5 happens, pawn takes, and now we got two pawns in the center. This is ridiculous. What about e6? Well, d6. And this looks kind of crazy for black. This is not fun. This is really not a fun position at all. But going back to here, so after knight to f3, they have knight f6 is the most common what I'll see, and this actually stops your push with e5. So very clever move. If I play e5, pawn takes, knight takes d5, and I actually lost a pawn once again. I think actually bishop e5 check works though. So bishop e5 check actually wins. So I've actually never gotten this because we've never actually gotten here. But I always played knight to c3, which I guess you could play e5 here. Actually, let's check with the engine and see what they say. Is it e5 or knight to c3? So they prefer knight to c3, and e5 is a secondary move. Now they're switching it, saying e5 is the best move here. Really, now that's nice. You learn something new every day in this opening. e5 is actually the move that they prefer. Knight to c3 is more principled and just the better move I like. I mean, human-like move. Knight to c3 is probably just like, it's very common, it's easy to make, and you develop. Knight to c3. e6 usually happens here. I like to capture. e5, of course, runs into trouble with this pawn. So taking here, if they take here, well, then you have f5. Boom. We just grab a piece here. So many tricks in this opening. After pawn takes, I still play f5. f5, not all the time, but f5 will work a lot of times, especially with the pawn sacrifice happening. And then you have so many open lines and diagonals for the king here. Bishop to b5, I can castle quickly and play rook e1's checks. And it's extremely gross for his position here. I also sometimes play bishop to c4 just to keep some pressure here. Bishop e7, castles, they get out the way as quickly as they can, and f5 comes in at the right time with the pin here on g8. This is very difficult for black to play. So many options for white, and I will tell you, there's a lot of fun you can have here in the center with the C3 Sicilian, even when they're playing just regular moves, like very common moves. Knight f6, e5, knight d5, knight c6, or yeah, let's actually, sorry, knight f3. Let's do like, what else have I seen? Weird stuff. g6 sometimes, not extremely weird, but d4, and then maybe bishop g7. Sometimes I could play c4 here. This looks fine, right? But c4, hitting the knight, bam. Now if you go back to b6, look at this. The knight is trapped. How is this even possible? Knight's trapped. Weird way to trap a knight, but the knight is absolutely trapped just because he didn't play correctly here. You should be just trying to break down his center as black as much as you can, while white should be trying to keep it, but dynamically keeping it with tactics around the space that you have with your spatial advantage in a C3 Sicilian. Completely like mind-blowing chess sometimes with this entire opening. That's why I love it so much. So I think that's today's tricks, guys, in learning and how it is to have the space here with fun in the center with the C3 Sicilian. So this is fun in the center with the C3 Sicilian. I recommend you watch this video 5, 6, 7, 20, 12, 30, 40, 50 times, as many times as you want, so that you can understand how these will work. And I guarantee you either had a position like this, or you will very quickly against your opponents, because they're going to play anything almost against the C3 Sicilian because it's not played as much, number one. And number two, they don't know these ideas. And because they don't, you're already in the driver's seat and you're already winning there. So again, make sure you guys watch this video as much as you can. Subscribe to the video, or subscribe to the channel. Share this video, put some likes and comments under the video. If you enjoyed it, just let me know in the comments, guys. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys on the next video. We in here.